Hi there, it's Nikki from Relationships Redefined, and there's a particular concept that I'd like to go over with you today. Intimacy. When we look at intimacy, often we don't know where to start. It sometimes differs depending on whether we're partnered or not. Can you have intimacy by yourself? Or do you always calculate someone else into the fold? Is whether or not they're a romantic partner or just strictly a sexual partner, does sex always have to play into intimacy? Right? When we look at the definition of intimacy, what has intimacy meant to you in the past? And based on the various experiences that you've had, does it shift? Does it differentiate? Does it have a different meaning from what it was before? Where do we figure out who we are as individuals and who we are as partners? Does intimacy have value when you allow somebody to see you in your vulnerability? Does intimacy mean just emotional intimacy? Does it mean only physical intimacy? Do you have a little bit of both? Do you have an emotional register, or are there mental components that get kind of incorporated into your definition of intimacy? Can you have, if intimacy is sex, can you have sex without the emotional toll? Can you have one without the other? Can you only have physical and not the emotional component? How much of me do I need to give up in order for us to work? Is often a question that I get in my practice. When we look at intimacy, do we see ourselves or a reflection of ourselves from our partners? And do we allow that to actually occur? Or sometimes do we really get scared when we notice that there's something that might be uncomfortable? In other words, how much vulnerability do we allow ourselves to have in this encasement, in this definition of intimacy for our own selves? When we think of intimacy, right, I have often heard of the denotions of each syllable: into me, see, right? Do I allow you to come and see into me? Do I allow you into this vulnerable space where I often don't allow many people to see? Can I trust you to come into this state of vulnerability with me? All of these factors play a part when we think about intimacy. So I'd like to kind of discuss it with you in the variances of how we see intimacy. But it's a start, if you haven't had the discussion with your partner yet, is maybe it's just even starting is, what is your definition of intimacy? And just stopping right there. Listening, you can learn so much more through observation than through sharing your feelings or sharing your emotions, but through observing what your partner's definition is, because you already know what your own definition is. So in listening to what theirs is and looking for the differences or the similarities, but doing it with curiosity, can be very invitational and very deepening of an experience when you allow your partner in. Sometimes we even forget to ask ourselves, what is intimacy by ourselves? Do we really know ourselves? What are the parts that we're really scared of uncovering? What are the parts that I know that I can effectively assert to another person and say, I'm comfortable doing this, or I'm not comfortable doing this? Do you feel scared? Do you feel like there's a part of you that gets stuck or frozen, right? Really knowing kind of what that response is. Do you fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? Knowing what those factors are for you can be a huge advantage before you even decide to venture into the state of intimacy or not with a partner. Does it always require a sexual connotation to have intimacy? Can you have intimacy separate from sex? What does intimacy mean? Where does it start? Often, sometimes people will say, it just starts with flirting. What is flirting actually? When we look at it, it's a behavioral method of trying to attract somebody that we feel that we judge as attractive and how to get their attention. So asking yourself, where does it really start for you? And first, actually reflecting on your own process before you go to a partner can be very, very helpful in starting to actually dive a little deeper to get to know your partner. Again, I'm the founder of Relationships Redefined, where we hope to make your intimacy a reality and hope to have a space where you can talk about your relationships, sex, intimacy, and communication. We bridge all of these together. I hope that you're doing well, and I hope to see you in the future with the series, and we'll see what comes up next. All the best.